Hello and welcome to IntelligentPod, the show where curiosity meets clarity. I'm your host, Sophie Lane, and today we're peeling back the layers on something that touches every one of us every single day, sometimes without us even noticing. We're talking about the science of taste and flavor. Why your favorite food makes you swoon, why some people can't stand cilantro, and why a single bite can transport you back to childhood. If you've ever wondered what's going on in your brain and body when you savor that morning coffee or dig into a spicy curry, you're in exactly the right place. So, whether you're listening on your commute, during a walk, or maybe while cooking up something delicious, I hope you're hungry for some knowledge, because today's episode is a feast for the senses. Let's get started by defining what we mean by taste and flavor. You might think they're the same thing, but actually, they're quite different. Taste, strictly speaking, refers to the 5 basic tastes our tongue can detect: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, which is that savory, meaty flavor in things like mushrooms or soy sauce. Flavor, on the other hand, is a much bigger experience. It's taste, yes, but also smell, texture, temperature, even sound. Think of the crunch of a potato chip. Flavor is the full orchestra, while taste is just one section. Here's a fun stat. Scientists estimate that up to 80% of what we perceive as flavor actually comes from our sense of smell. That's why when you have a cold, everything tastes bland. Your nose is out of action. Let's try a relatable example. Imagine biting into a warm, gooey piece of chocolate cake. What's happening? Your tongue is picking up sweet, maybe a hint of bitter from the chocolate. Your nose is inhaling all those rich cocoa aromas. The texture? Soft, moist, maybe a little fudgy, adds another layer. Even the sound of the fork scraping the plate can trigger anticipation. All of these senses combine in your brain to create the experience we call flavor. But why do we like some flavors and not others? And why do our preferences change over time? Well, that's where things get really interesting, because the science of taste and flavor is both universal and deeply personal. Let's start with a psychological perspective. Our taste preferences are shaped by our experiences, starting from the womb. Literally, research shows that what a pregnant person eats can influence a baby's taste preferences later on. There's a famous study from the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia, where researchers asked pregnant women to drink carrot juice during pregnancy. And then later, when their babies were old enough for solid foods, those babies were more likely to enjoy carrot-flavored cereal than babies whose mothers hadn't had carrot juice. So our early exposure primes us for certain flavors. But it's not all destiny. Culture, habits, and even peer pressure play a huge role. In Japan, for example, fermented foods like natto are beloved by many. But the strong, pungent flavor can be a shock to someone who didn't grow up eating it. Meanwhile, in Sweden, salty licorice is a treat. In other countries, it's an acquired taste at best. Now let's take a look at the biological side. Our ability to taste is a survival mechanism. Sweetness signals energy-rich foods. Bitterness, on the other hand, can indicate toxins, so we're hardwired to be wary of bitter flavors, especially as children. That's why broccoli can be such a tough sell for kids. As we get older, our sensitivity to bitterness decreases, which is why many of us start to enjoy coffee, dark chocolate, or Brussels sprouts as adults. But biology doesn't just stop at the taste buds. There's a fascinating genetic component, too. Have you ever heard of super tasters? These are people who have more taste buds than average and experience flavors, especially bitterness, more intensely. About 25% of people fall into this category. If you're one of them, cilantro might taste like soap, or you might find grapefruit unbearably bitter. Let's dig into an academic study for a moment. In 2006, researchers at the University of California, San Diego published a paper on the cilantro soap phenomenon. They found that people's perception of cilantro's flavor is linked to a specific gene called OR6A2, which codes for a receptor that detects aldehyde chemicals, compounds also found in soap. So, If cilantro tastes soapy to you, it's not just in your head, it's in your genes. Now, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about biology and psychology. But what about the environment around us? The context in which we eat can dramatically influence how we perceive flavors. There's a famous experiment by Charles Spence at Oxford, where participants rated the same cheese as saltier when listening to high-pitched sounds and creamier when listening to low-pitched sounds. It's called sonic seasoning, the idea that music can actually change how your food tastes. And it's not just sound. The color of your plate, the lighting in the room, even the company you keep can alter your perception of flavor. Ever notice how food tastes better when you're with good friends or when you're on vacation? That's no accident. Our brains are constantly integrating external cues to create our flavor experience. So with all this in mind, how can we use the science of taste and flavor to enrich our daily lives? I've got a few actionable tips for you. First, try mindful eating. Next time you have a meal or even just a snack, take a moment to really notice the flavors, the aromas, the textures. This can actually make your food more satisfying and help you tune into your body's hunger and fullness signals. Second, don't be afraid to experiment. If there's a food you've never liked, say Brussels sprouts or blue cheese, try it again in a different context. Roast those sprouts with olive oil and garlic. Or try blue cheese crumbled over a salad instead of alone. Sometimes a new preparation or a change in company can make all the difference. Third, play with your senses. Try eating with your eyes closed or switching up your usual dinner playlist. Notice how these changes affect your enjoyment of the meal. And finally, be open to the idea that your preferences can change. Our taste buds regenerate every couple of weeks, and our brains are always adapting. What you dislike today might be your favorite flavor tomorrow. To recap, taste and flavor are complex, multi-sensory experiences shaped by biology, culture, genetics, and even the environment around us. The next time you sit down to eat, remember, you're not just feeding your body, you're engaging a symphony of senses, memories, and emotions. So, what will you do differently at your next meal? Maybe you'll savor that bite a little longer, or try something new. Whatever your flavor journey, I hope today's episode has given you a fresh perspective on the science behind what's on your plate. Thank you so much for tuning in to IntelligentPod. If you enjoyed today's episode on the science of taste and flavor, please leave us a review. It helps new listeners discover the show. You can find show notes, links to studies, and more resources at IntelligentPod.com. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or even your favorite food stories. Just email me at sophie@intelligentpod.com. Until next time, keep your mind curious and your palate adventurous. I'm Sophie Lane. And this was IntelligentPod. Happy tasting.